Welcome to With Love Men, where we dig deep into what it truly means to be a man today. I'm Jake Fishbein.
And I am Nick Papadopoulos, affectionately known as Coach Nick.
Together, we've led men's groups for a combined 25 years.
Does that make us old, Jake?
I think
Okay,
it's
never mind.
start.
That's for
I
that's
think
for
it's starting to.
different conversation. Um, Jake, we've also written a novel about a fictional men's group and the impact of this work. And that novel, which is called The Men's Group, a novel of messy friendships, will be out, released, and in people's hands starting June the 9th, this spring, 2026.
Cannot wait. It's
Yes.
been 10 years in the making, which
Yes.
I will say probably should be a podcast episode about the
Absolutely.
10-year journey
Yes,
that we've been on.
absolutely.
So, this podcast with Love Men is another space in addition to the novel and our men's group, the Arena Men's Group, where we have real conversations about vulnerability, courage, and connection. No masks, no pretending, just honest talk about being men.
That's right. And how we most often start our men's group sessions is to get ourselves grounded, right? Feet on the ground, take a deep, deep breath and let it out and step into the arena with us. And let's get started.
Let's do it.
What are we talking about today?
Well, I think it's a topic we've talked about before. And as I was on the subway to my office getting ready for this, I was thinking this is probably a good topic to start every year with because it is a forever topic and something that is constantly evolving. So today we're talking about what does it mean to be a man in 2026?
Awesome. That sounds good. And I believe, Jake, am I on the hot seat first, or are you going on the hot seat first?
I'm on the hot seat first today, I think.
Okay, so for those who know us, who have been on this journey listening to all of our podcast episodes, or if you're new, we ask each other questions related to the topic. This topic is what does it mean to be a man today? And we don't rehearse. We don't know what the questions are going to be to keep it more organic and natural and very much more like our sessions where guys get on a hot seat, right? And we explore important topics. So, Jake, I'm going to hit you with what did you learn from your dad about what it means to be a man? I figured I'd go for the heartstring first. And I asked you that question. There's obvious for those who know you have a very close relationship with your dad. And at the same time, I do believe fathers or guardians and grandfathers and uncles, and obviously there's moms and aunties and grandmothers as well. They play
Mhm.
such an important role, right? These are our first mentors, right? Our first coaches, our first leaders, right? And um, yeah, I would love to know
Mhm.
what you observed, what you learned, what you experienced about what means to be a man from your dad.
Well, what a great question. I'll try to get through it without crying. Let's see if that's possible. And it's a hard question to answer, not because there's not an answer, but because I wouldn't really know where to begin.
Mm,
And one thought is go read our book. I think that will,
mhm.
that's my cheating answer. Is go read the book because the book is so much. I mean, that journey was so much about my relationship with my dad and some of the challenges I had and the great appreciation I had
Right.
and still have for him. And again, it's so hard. I mean, I could probably list a litany of things. So let me get grounded. And you kind of stumped me with this
Is there,
question.
let me throw you a lifeline.
Yeah.
For the moment, at least, is there a word or a sentiment that might capture the experience?
Yeah. But that's what I'm trying to get to. And when I think about
Mhm.
my dad, I mean, he's someone who cares a great deal about his friendships. He's
Okay.
someone who has deep conviction
Okay.
about making a difference in the world. He's someone who is like commitment defines, I think, the way that he's operated in his career.
Right.
And he's also someone who has this humility of never wanting to take the credit, never looking to be that, I don't know, that center of attention that he very well could be. And I
Got
think
it.
for me, I learned the power of vulnerability. I learned like my dad is not one of those men who is stoic and doesn't talk about his feelings and never shares about his challenges and just talks about sports and
Right.
held me to an impossible standard that I could never reach. I mean, that just is not who he is. And so for me, I grew up with this model of masculinity that was so much about honesty and about vulnerability and about sharing deep feelings, about
Right.
sharing love and appreciation and pride.
Right.
And I mean, I always think, and he used to ask this question, and it shows up in the book. He used to ask me, "What's going on in your heart?" Which I
Hmm.
think for a father to ask his son is just such a beautiful question. I mean, for a man
Right.
to ask anyone, I mean, that's not a question that most people would associate with
Right.
men. And
Right.
yet it was such a gift to have that question. And every time we speak, that question's in the back of my mind. Even
Mm.
when even when he doesn't ask it, it's present.
Right. Right.
And so in many ways, what I learned from my dad about what it means to be a man is to come from the heart and connect from the heart.
Mm. Mm. That's
And
awesome.
that is what a great gift to
Mm.
have. And then throw the cherry on top, I've watched him make a huge difference in the world. That
Right.
I also learned that as a man, I mean, not that this is what every man should do, but I just took it for granted. Oh yeah, like you go help people and make a difference and get lifetime achievement awards and be committed to like impacting the most underserved communities in the world and helping them and not wanting to take the credit on the back end and really
Right.
saying it's about them doing their work. And we've talked about this before. And for those of you who don't know, my dad, he runs a nonprofit called the Coffee Trust and has been running nonprofits in the coffee industry for since 1988. He founded the first nonprofit to work exclusively with coffee farmers called Coffee Kids in 1988. And he did it because coffee was what elevated his career and got him
Right.
out of this really challenging cycle of business. And he realized he couldn't sell another pound of coffee without helping the people upon whose
Mm.
shoulders he stood on to make a
Hmm.
living. And I've heard stories from friends of his. They would say he would never tell about him visiting towns in Mexico or Guatemala and the children running from each town saying, Senor Beale is coming, Senor Beale is coming. And he would never tell that story,
Right.
but his friends would. And
Mm.
so I also saw, okay, this is also what it means to be a man,
Right.
is to go have a big vision for helping people, I mean, or for anything, and just
Right.
be unwavering in that commitment to it. Now, of course, when I got out of college, I held myself to the standard of, in my first 5 years of employment, I need to find a big vision that makes a huge difference in the world, which
Right.
wasn't really the most helpful pressure to be putting on myself.
Right.
And of
Right.
course, my dad didn't put that on me.
Right.
I
You
put
did.
that on. I did.
Although
Um,
you actually, by the way, did accomplish that through the work that we did and continue to do with the Heart School in Haiti. I mean, as a young man in those first 5 years, you like your dad, took a service trip, and
yes.
spend time down in Haiti. So, um,
Absolutely. And even more than Heart and Haiti, which the amazing work we've done there and
right,
is huge. I think the work we do with men is my version of that.
absolutely, yes, absolutely,
And like the place my dad's work has always been about, or it's striving to be about going to these communities in coffee growing regions and asking them what they need,
right,
not coming in with the solutions as the gringo from the north.
right,
Just like our work with men is about creating these spaces where men get to talk about what they need
Right.
and work on what matters to them.
Right.
And we don't have all the answers all of the time. Most of the
Right.
time, we're helping them create their own solutions. So it's like the similarities between our work, mine and my dad's, is very, I mean, similar in different veins. And I mean, I did find work that is making a big difference in the
Right.
world in
Right.
its own way.
Yeah. I mean, what I heard so much in what you just described was around heart versus head.
Yeah.
And that heart, as you said, gave you access to vulnerability, honesty, being outwardly focused, being giving, the humility. Awesome. That's that I would say that's a home run answer.
Thank you.
If, for anybody scoring, I give that a 10. That was awesome, man. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the perfect place to start.
Yeah, and as you say that, and we're talking about what does it mean to be a man today, every man is given this blueprint of masculinity from his father or the main
Right,
male
right,
that's raising him.
right,
And that comes with all of his father's wounds and all of his father's stories and all of his father's fears
right.
and insecurities.
Yep,
And we each learn from that. And I'm
yeah,
I'm curious for you, if the question was reversed,
yep.
what was it you learned about being a man from your dad?
So my dad, again, you know the story, and I've shared this. He's an immigrant from Greece. Um, my dad, my dad grew up watching James Cagney movies and really fell in love with New York in particular. It's why I'm so fond of, living in New York City. And I have to be honest, every time I look at the Empire State Building, I think of my dad because I know that he just fell in love with just wanting to be here, right? And what I would say I learned from my dad about masculinity is that, and it's something that I actually recently heard Scott Galloway, who we've referenced or I reference often in these conversations. What my dad taught me is that um, what it means to be a man is to be someone who contributes more than they take. And
Mhm.
when you get to that point where on that ledger of am I taking or am I giving, you're giving more than you're taking, right? And and how that relates to my dad is your classic immigrant story. Came here, $50, knew maybe a couple of people, didn't know any CEOs and high political, influencers. I mean, he knew, somebody who owned a home and rented him a basement apartment and someone who could get him a job as a busboy in a local restaurant. And my dad, what he taught me was the importance of taking care of others. Um, it to some degree, even putting others ahead of himself. My dad, I think in his best year, now granted, this was back in the 70s and 80s, so clearly the money's different, yet not too much different. I mean, in his best year, he probably made 45, $50,000. And somehow my sister and I, he put us through parochial school, for 10 years each. We went to college. Yes, there were some scholarships and things like that, but still he provided, bought a home, bought a pretty decent sized home in Queens. And uh, what I learned from him, and I keep going back to this, is that he gave more than he took.
Mhm.
He, his dream was for my sister and I to be in a different place than he and my mother were. And he and my mom made sure that we had everything that we could possibly need, right? From food, shelter, education, love, support. And in many ways, he took a back seat. And I don't say that as a tragedy or as a sad story. I really do believe that's That's part of what it means to be a man. There's obviously many elements, much like you were just describing, about your dad and what you learned from him. And there's some similarities about giving, and I think that's a different way of giving, right? Um, this is what Scott Galloway talks about is that, when we're younger, and I take myself for example, right? Up until I graduated from college, even my first year of college, my parents provided financially, emotionally. They provided with guidance, if you will, right? And 30 plus 35 years later, my sister and I are taking care of my mom, right? Like, my sister taking on much more than myself, but between the two of us, right, you'll find me taking my mom to a doctor's appointment or calling a doctor on her behalf or my sister managing, her expenses, right? Or maybe even covering some of her expenses. That's what Galloway's talking about, which is you become a man when you start to give more than you
Mm.
take. And I believe in our work, how that often shows up is the difference between being responsible versus being victim, right? When you're being responsible, right, you're being responsible to your relationships, you're being responsible to your work, you're being responsible to your community, to your family, right? It doesn't mean you win all the time. It doesn't mean you get it right all the time. However, you are responsible, right? You are the one who is looking to make things happen, on behalf of everybody, versus when you play victim or victim to your circumstances, right? You 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 act like a child, really. I mean, you become helpless, powerless, right? And I know that when I go to that place, right, when I become victim to I don't know how to turn on my computer. Or we were just futzing around with my speaker before we started this podcast, right? When I go to that place of I don't know how to do anything, somebody help me, somebody do it for me, that's when we're in that victim place or
Mm.
that childlike place, which is the opposite of what it means to be a man. So if I had to sum it up again, just and I've said it a few times, I believe what it means to be a man and what I learned from my dad was um, put yourself first. I'm sorry, cancel that. Put others first before yourself. And we have this saying, which is love the relationship more than yourself. So when you love the relationship more than yourself, you get taken care of. And I do believe I learned that from my dad. He put the relationship first. And I do believe he got taken care of. He got taken care of by my mom. He got taken care of. I mean, we were probably a little too young when he was alive, but he was taken care of as well inside of that experience where he was able to come as an immigrant with $50 and have really what I would call a successful life, not because of money or material things, although he, again, bought a home, all that, but the quality of his relationships
Yeah.
because he put others first.
I really appreciate that framing of especially love the relationship more than yourself. And you become a man when you give more than you take.
Yeah,
And I'm curious, like another layer deeper,
yeah.
because so many of the men who come to our groups, so many of the men that we talk to, they put themselves last,
Mm,
but they don't put themselves last in a
right.
healthy way. And
Right.
I can see them listening to this saying, like, oh, yeah, like I need to make my wife happy and I need to get my kids things. And if I want to do something, like, I shouldn't do it because I need to take care of the relationship and I need to take care, I need to give more than I take. So, what would you say to someone like
Mm,
that who maybe isn't doing it from an intentional place, maybe feels selfish if
right.
they take care of themselves, maybe feels like the paradigm of happy wife, happy life is the way to go. Because there's a fine line between I want to give more than I take, I want to love the relationship more than myself, and I want to betray myself and take
Hmm.
care of other people and forget taking care of me.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about the come from. If my come from, if your come from is I'm not taking care of myself because I don't feel I'm worthy. I don't feel I deserve. I feel I'm a piece of shit. Um,
Hmm.
th by the way, that's not what it means to be a man. That's actually playing, I believe, it's starting to play in that paradigm of being victim, right? Um, so I believe that when I say, or I was just sharing about what it means to be a man is to give more than you take. You're doing it because there's a trust and an
Mm.
understanding, if you will, or this 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 agreement that you're making with yourself and with the universe, which is this is this is this is the most loving thing to do. And as a man, look, we are men are wired to be protectors. And so it very much aligns with being a protector when if it, this notion of give more than you receive, right? Like keep taking care of your kids, keep taking care of your family, keep taking care of your workers, take care of your neighbors, right? Um, it is about protecting, and I actually believe it fulfills our mission
Mm.
as men to protect and to take care. And inside of it, I really do believe, and I know I don't know, have something tangible. There's like an understanding with the universe that you're taking care of, which is this, again, going back to this notion of love the relationship more than yourself. When you have that kind of trust that I'm going to get taken care of, listen, my dad, for example, going back to my father's greatest thrill. Again, my dad passed away, when I was in my 20s, right? So, one of his greatest thrills of his life was being at my NYU graduation. Like it was one of the and I remember we went out to dinner afterward with some of my friends and I remember, again, my dad didn't have a lot of money, and I remember my dad being so proud and like paying for everybody, and I just that seems like a small thing, right? And I knew that was a big deal for him, and I knew like he was if he could be clicking his heels and skipping around that room, like it was that's who my dad was in that moment. So yes, he put his kids first, right? He took care of us. He sent us to parochial school when he had no business doing that. Yet there he was winning his
Mm.
championship, right? At that point it was, me graduating, from college. I mean, no one had graduated from college, in our family. So it's about the come from, so if the come from is I put just using my dad as the example, I'm putting my kids first, not because Elias, that's my dad's name, Elias, don't deserve to be put first. No, no,
That's,
my kids are an expression, they're an extension of who I am, of my worthiness. The work like you were describing with your dad, I mean, your dad the work that he did in South America is an extension, an expression of who he is. It's not separate.
yes.
Right? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's interesting as you're speaking, I think about the story you often told about your dad would come home from work and he'd get in the bath and he'd
Yeah.
listen to opera music
Yes.
and
Really loudly.
really loudly. And it's like that was him taking care of
Yes,
himself.
absolutely.
And it would be one thing if he hadn't been doing that
Yes.
and just been giving.
Yes.
But he did that for himself too. And I know there's
Absolutely.
so many men, I think, who have it wired that they don't matter,
Absolutely.
that their desires don't matter. I mean, this is I mean, it's been on my mind because I'm engaged and I'm getting married thank
Congratulations.
you, a little over a year. And my fiance and I are going through the motions and planning the wedding.
Right.
And we went on a call with a photographer a couple weeks ago, and
Hmm.
we hopped on the call, and Perry, my fiance, was answered the call, and then I said something, and the photographer's like, "Whoa, like most grooms aren't on the first call," and all of the calendar invites are her name,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it's
Right.
it's like And I know it's like you might think it's a small thing, but
It is not
we notice small things, and it's not a small thing because the subtle message that the wedding industry sends men is that
right,
you shouldn't care.
right.
That
And they set it up that way, i.e., the invites go to one person, not the other.
exactly. And so it's so interesting. And I even said to that photographer, I said, well, if we work with you, you'll find out I'm not like most grooms.
Hmm.
And it's because of this intentionality of I actually want to give to our wedding.
Yes,
And I want to show my fiance that I really care.
yes,
And I think so many men have it that no, me showing I really care is saying whatever you want, honey.
yes,
And we often talk about that is not the way to show you care.
absolutely. What's uh, um what's one of the things I keep recommending to you to do around your ceremony, Jake?
To really make it our own.
Yes, and that's an example of disrupting that narrative that you said, right? Which is, well, the groom doesn't really participate; they're checked out. And that's an example of what I mean about giving more than taking, right? I mean, technically speaking, there's a script. You and Perry there's a script that if you and Perry just wanted to show up, you could get married, and the person, marrying you has
Yes.
their script, and you guys don't have to really do a whole lot, right? And that's where I feel like that's the experience of being more childlike,
Yes.
right? Versus, going back to again our conversation about what does it mean to be a man, which is great that there's a script, and I want to contribute more than I take. Like, like I want to Jake, or I did the same when I got married. I wanted to put in the effort um, to make the experience. I mean, I think ultimately it's what you're doing. You're making the experience your own, and I think that's part of what it means to be a man is you're not you're not victim to the world for that matter, right? It's like you're making
Yeah.
stuff happen.
And as we're having this conversation, and I mean, I come back to this could be, essentially, we do talk about this topic every time we record one of these podcasts.
Yes, it's
In
always in the
some,
background.
it's always in the background that what I'm really present to, that what it means to be a man today, and maybe what it's always meant to be a man, but we're here in January 2026, is being a man means being a full participant,
Yes.
means being fully engaged. That
Yes.
means giving. That means taking care of oneself. That means coming from heart. That
Yes.
means, I mean, whatever your circumstances is demanding of you, because
Yes.
we all are in different circumstances. And
Yes.
what someone's full participation looks like varies based on what's going on in their life, how old they are, if they have children, if they have a spouse, if they're elderly, if their friends are passing away, if they're in college,
Yes.
that participation looks different. But to be a man, and you could make the case to be a human,
Right.
to be a good person or
Right.
a fulfilled person, never mind good or bad or the other, just is to be engaged, is to
Yes.
be a full participant in the experience. And I wonder, as you look at men in the world today, both men we know, and I know our community is a little skewed because people are literally choosing to be participants.
Right.
But do you see men, or how much do you see men being full participants in their lives?
Well, as you said, it we are a bit skewed because right now I'm part of three groups. And so, almost 40 to 45 men, depending on the time. So I get to see a different kind of man. Like you said, I mean, just for starters, right, in our three groups, I mean, you have men who choose to meet every 2 weeks and pay and invest their time and their soul and their heart, right? Um, Overall, um, I would say I mean, there's definitely concern that I have, right? I mean, especially for younger men. Um, I think see, younger men were born into a world, right? They were handed a script that said, this is how, if you identify as a man, this is the world that you're in, and if others identify differently, this is the world that they live in. And I believe they've grown up now, right? Their first 15, 20, 25 years, 30 years for that matter. And it's a different ball game. And what I often see is the leaning towards being victim to circumstance, right? And part of that is not knowing what to do because the rules are shifting, the rules are changing. And so it seems to me that there is confusion. And at the same time, I see it as an opportunity. I mean, that's what's exciting about our book coming out. What's exciting about a lot of the men's work that seems to be blossoming and developing. You and I are going to a conference in Colorado in May, called the Big Tent Summit. And it's all, practitioners and thought leaders in the men's work. I mean, this is all new stuff, right? So what I don't know if I'm answering your question. Let me bottom line it, which is there's definitely concern about younger men for me, who instead of doing like what your dad did, right, which is, hey, I work in coffee and realizing, wait, something's not right. I'm going to go make a difference. Or my dad, I don't want to be where he was. I want to move to the United States and make things happen. I feel like there's an opportunity, especially in the younger community, younger men, to go make things happen. And I think
Mm.
that is being responsible. And I believe someone like myself who's in his 50s, and for the men who listen to our call, our podcast, and even to the men who are in our groups who are older, than, over 30, I actually believe it is our responsibility to give back and to mentor and to role model, um, what it means to be a man, which is really recreating all of the narratives and all the rules, and creating a whole new paradigm, that your kids, you and Perry
Mhm.
have, that they're handed a different script than you were, than I was.
Yeah. That last point really strikes a chord for me. And it's something we've talked about a lot that historically there's always been initiation for young men into manhood
Right.
from the older men of the community. And we don't really have true communities anymore. Like
Sure.
we do, but not the type
Right.
of close-knit villages, communities. And so young men are missing that pivotal
Right.
moment. And you've heard me say this countless times, but I remember going to college and looking at the college seniors and thinking, oh, wow, like they really know. I can't
Right.
wait to learn from them. And then becoming a senior myself and realizing they didn't know anything. And yet there I was learning to be a man from older boys.
Yeah.
And what I'm struck with is an opportunity for men who are not young-ish or not in their teens and 20s, who are in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, to be full participants in the initiation
Yes.
of boys into men
Absolutely.
in a different, more intentional way. And this is a slight thing, and I'll report back. I'm going to Florida next week with a partner of mine to run a program for a private prep school for their
Right.
middle school students who are 10 to 14 years old. And we hear that there is a lot of trouble with a group of seventh grade boys,
Mm.
which not a big surprise to me. I was once a seventh grade boy. I
Right.
remember how seventh grade boys are. It's such a challenging time. And yet I imagine a world where boys who are at that 13, 14 mark are beginning to be mentored by men.
Yeah. Just to jump in on that, Jake, I saw something about how in New York, we're New York centric, um, women who sign up for the Big Sister,
Hmm.
um, Big Sister, Little Sister is 3 to 4 times more than Big Brother, Little Brother program in New York. That's what I mean as an example of where, um, I believe. as men, I really do believe it's our responsibility, and what it means to be a man is to mentor others younger than us, right? To provide that
Yes.
support that you're describing.
Yeah, I think it's a game changer. And I'm always grateful I joined the Dudes of Disruption men's group at 24
Right.
because it was a pivotal moment in my life to have the support of men who were 10 to 15 years older than I was.
Right.
And I want that type of experience for more younger men. Not that they need to go join a men's group in high school or college,
Correct.
because listen, I don't think they will want to, and
Right.
that's okay. And there is an opportunity for them to have male role models who are not their fathers,
Hmm.
who are not their teachers.
Yeah.
Because at that age, there's so much conflict and a moving away from family and a rebelling against authority
Right.
that those two role models are not always the best ones
Mm.
in that moment. And I often talk with my clients about, especially the ones that are parents, and I know I say this not being a parent myself yet, but fully believing this in large part from watching my dad parent and watching you parent, is many times the things that you say, the things that you impart to your children are not for them to receive in that moment,
Yes.
but for them to look back 10, 15 years in the future and come
Yes.
back to that moment.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a great call out. I mean, we even say that in our work. Sometimes we
Yeah.
give somebody feedback or we give some coaching, and we'll, at first blush, we'll say, I'm not sure Jake got that. I'm not sure it landed.
Hmm.
And the reality is, it may have, it may not have. However, what does often happen, or the hope is, a year from now, they
Yes.
have that aha moment driving, or they're in a meeting, or they're listening to music or whatever the case may be. Yeah, that's such a good call out.
Yeah.
Are we at time already?
We're at time almost.
How'd that happen?
I don't know. It flies by. We could be doing those 2, 3 hour podcasts that apparently people love to watch, which I don't know how they do that.
I don't either, man. I don't either. So, is this our parting shot moment?
Let's do our parting shots.
Okay. Want me to go first, or
Yeah,
you want
you
to go
go
first?
first.
I would say, and this is obviously a general statement, men often operate very black and white. They either, and you referenced this, Jake, they either go into, I'm going to do it all by myself. I'm going to do it all alone. The world is on my shoulders, all the pressure. And they go internal, right? They're living in their heads, um, physically that is not healthy, emotionally is not healthy. The other extreme is that men often go to that victim place, which is where, often, especially in heterosexual relationships, the women will complain that, my
Mhm.
husband's acting like a child, or I have yet another child to add to my posse. And I would say what it means to be a man is to operate somewhere in the middle, right? Which is much of what you described, let's say, with your dad, about being honest, about being vulnerable, about being giving. I mean, part of being honest and vulnerable, and I know you've shared this about, in your conversations over the years with your dad, is, and you said it a few, at the very beginning, he's not perfect, and he shares about things that he struggles with, or that he, has doubts about. Um, so it goes back to the come from.
Mm.
The come from, if the come from is that, I want to give more than I receive, not because I'm not worthy, but because what I'm giving is an extension of me. It's an expression of me. It's actually loving myself. um, then you're going to be in that middle. You're not going to be
Yeah.
victim. You're not going to be all alone. I would say it's really in the middle is really the opportunity of what it means to be a man, which is it's messy there, and it's okay to be messy as a man. You don't have to appear or have the pressure of appearing like you have it all together. Having it all together is is being honest and being
Mm.
vulnerable and asking for support, and asking to be in partnership. So that's my parting shot.
And my parting shot is echoing everything you just said with the framing I used earlier, which is to be a man means to be a full participant in your life. And I think that means all of those things. It means being vulnerable. It means being courageous. It means being honest. It means getting messy. It means telling on yourself. It means allowing yourself to be angry or mad or mess up. And then everything else under the sun. And importantly, for those men listening, only you know what it means for you to be a full participant.
Right.
That we can tell you the different qualities that that may have. But I've been saying this for 10 years since we started working on the book. And at the time, I actually interviewed a bunch of people and I asked them, what does it mean to be a man? And I still think I
Mm,
have those answers somewhere.
hmm.
And nobody had the same answer.
Right.
And I think that's what really matters is that for each man, for each human on the planet, what it means to be a man, what it means to be human is unique to that person. And say,
Right.
whatever that is, if you're going and being a full participant, if you're being fully expressed and fully
Right.
engaged and striving to give more than you take and make a positive difference in the world and not come from a place of ego and insecurity, from a
Right.
place of giving and sharing and generosity and being fully engaged with that, knowing that you're going to mess up
Yep.
but you're going to be a full participant anyway. I think that's what it means to be a man today. Probably what it's always meant to be a man. And
Right.
I've learned something new inside this conversation because I never thought
Same.
about it in that way before.
Same.
And
Absolutely.
that's going to shift how I talk about it going
Yeah.
forward.
Absolutely. Awesome. Love doing
Awesome.
this with you.
Always, Nick. Well, thank you to our listeners.
Yes. Thank you.
We will be back soon and would love Jake,
With love, Nick.
would love men.